As a practicing physician, I wanted to create a place that folks could go to that not only delivers great health information in a way that's understandable and useful, but also share inspirational stories to help us all grow. People think that once you're adults, you're done learning. You are not. In order to be successful, you have to have an open mind to learn. Real problems discussed in depth with real solutions. This is the Dr. Nandi Show. Hello and welcome to the Dr. Nandi Show. Today, I'm talking about the mindset of healthy weight. Now, let's be honest here. How many of you have been on diets throughout your life? I ask because this industry is raking in billions with all kinds of tantalizing ways of how you can drop weight and drop it fast. And the reality is that very few who lose weight can actually keep it off long term. As a physician, I talk about food all day long, and my patients are always asking my opinion on all the different types of diets are on. So I'm going to tell you exactly what I tell them. Please don't diet. I actually feel this word should not exist because it's a prescription for failure. I want you to give up this mentality that you can drop a certain number of pounds in a short period of time, and we know this backfires and then leads to yo-yo dieting. So today I got a great lineup of experts who are ready to share the right mindset we all need to have when it comes to food. We'll also discuss sugar addiction, the mind-gut connection, and my favorite, mindful eating. So please don't go away. When we come back, my first guest will share their struggles with food and how they change their mindset when it comes to eating. Please stay with us.
Some of us have the kind of brain that is set to respond to food cues. And so until we calm those brains down, which is our mind, we need willpower, and willpower doesn't work long term.
Welcome back, everyone. You are watching the Dr. Nandi Show, and today I'm discussing the mindset of healthy weight. Because I want you to stop thinking that trendy diets are the answer to losing weight and keeping it off. Now, my next two guests are true health heroes. At one point, they both weighed over 200 pounds and had tried numerous diets. Julia had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and was pre-diabetic. Fearful for a heart attack or stroke, she knew she needed a different mindset when it came to eating. For Jenny, life was very difficult. She was unhappy with her weight and consumed with thoughts of food. Her doctor suggested cholesterol medications, and that spurred her on to make lifestyle changes. Please welcome Julia Carroll and Jenny Hazelton. Julia, right?
Yes.
And Jenny? Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on. And so I'll start with Julia. So what was going on with your life and before you found some of the tools you did before?
I had tried everything, and my health was getting worse and worse and worse, and my cravings were getting stronger and stronger. I would eat healthy during the day, and then at nighttime it was like a monster took over, and
yes.
I couldn't not get into the flour, sugar, ice cream, potato chips. I couldn't. And
a lot of people have that problem.
Yeah, I would think all day about what I hadn't eaten. Don't eat this, do eat that. Oh. It was a constant chatter in my brain about food.
And Jenny, what about you? What was life like for you before you found?
I'd make myself make up reasons to go to parts of town I knew had good food, and I'd go there just so I could buy a pizza, and
Really?
I'd buy a large one and have it in the car and think, I'll eat a little bit of it and I'll save it for dinner.
Never.
I'd eat the whole thing.
Really? In the car?
Yeah.
Maybe, huh? Wow.
Maybe, sometimes, not always.
What was life like as kids for you guys? When you were children, and I'll ask both of you, Julia, what was life like as kids? How did you eat as kids? Do you remember?
My mother had a very healthy home, so I would make friends with kids whose mothers had candy on the table. I literally chose my friends based on
how much candy they had?
How much candy they had. I did anything for candy.
And Jenny, what about you?
I remember being obsessed with getting candy as a kid. I rode my bike a lot, and usually it was to the corner store to get candy.
To get candy. But your mom and dad, they didn't. What did they do? Did they encourage candy? Didn't encourage candy? What did they tell you?
They didn't encourage candy, no. They bought a lot of prepackaged cookies and things like that, and we had sweetened drinks in the house, but candy, not so much. They would reward us with candy. I remember
would.
going every Sunday to get the newspaper with my dad, and he'd buy us a candy bar.
Okay.
And I look forward to that a lot.
So then fast forward to your lives, and so you were frustrated, and Julia, what did you do, and finally how did you find your solution?
Well, I had figured out that diets don't work. I had read
Hallelujah.
science, I had read science, I'd read everything, and I wasn't going to do anything again unless I knew what worked. I happened to hear Susan Pierce Thompson, and I found Bright Line Eating.
Yeah.
And her videos made sense to me, and I joined her online course. The hardest part was of the whole thing, and I'm down 86 pounds.
Good for you.
It's been 3 years of no flour, no sugar. But the hardest part was just the decision to even try.
Really, just to start?
After that, it got easier, and the program has social support. That's how I met Jenny. Tons of social support. It's based on science. It's a whole mindset change about how I think about food. And I am now someone who does not need willpower.
Good for you.
It's easy for me. You had a bunch of flour and sugar in the green room. I don't even see it.
Wait a minute, we have sugar and flour?
Yes,
that probably
you
is
do.
wrong. I gotta talk to Ron about that. Sorry about that. You know,
That's okay. You
we're
have
putting flour
vegetables
and sugar.
too.
Good.
You do, you do.
And Jenny, tell me about your journey. What happened? How did you find Bright Line Eating as well?
I'd tried everything, Weight Watchers. I'd tried different programs.
Nothing worked?
And not for me, it did not work.
How many diets
no.
between the two of you had you tried, do you think? 20?
How long is this program?
It's infinity. How many you can go as long as you want. So how many diets did you guys try?
I tried everything.
Like
I tried
over 10 diets?
Yeah, I didn't do the really silly stuff. I never did like eat only pineapple or something like that. But yeah, Weight Watchers.
How about you,
Jenny
Jen?
Craig,
Yeah.
all of them.
I really just tried Weight Watchers, but over and over again. If they gave out frequent flyer cards, I would have had one. Yeah.
And you went to Brightline, and what was that like for you?
Oh, it was when I saw Susan Pierce Thompson talk about the connection, what sugar does to the brain, it felt like a light bulb went off in my head. And within 10 minutes of seeing her webinar about exactly what it does, it felt like I just knew that this could be the missing link for me.
And it wasn't a diet, was it? It was a mindset. Tell me how this is so different from a diet.
Well, diets rely on willpower, and I don't have any, none. I am instant gratification girl all the way. And Susan explains how some of us have the kind of brain, and she has a quiz called the susceptibility quiz. Some of us have the kind of brain that is set to respond to food cues. And so until we calm those brains down, which is our mind, we need willpower, and willpower doesn't work long term.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've been now, today is she's longer, 990 days, no flour, no sugar, not one calorie. And I do not need willpower for it.
So, Jenny, so tell me for you how it was different than a diet. Because you've already been on Weight Watchers. How is this different?
Also, just like Julia, the not having to use willpower and actually replacing that, there are habits that you form of not eating flour and sugar, making it having your brain adjust to that and it becoming a habit not to do that has replaced the need for willpower for me. And that has been the biggest thing, and that's why it doesn't feel like a diet for me anymore. I really enjoy the way I eat now.
And the ladies are talking about the gut-brain connection. So, you know, what you put in your mouth, when it goes in your gut, changes the entire paradigm of the hormones that are created in your gut into your brain. It resets so many triggers that you have. So these ladies can actually go around and not have to go drive to a pizza place just to go drive there and eat the entire pizza in the car. We'll put some information about Brightline. Thank you for sharing your experience. That's awesome, and congratulations for all that you guys are doing to help yourselves, and now you're helping others. So thank you so much. It's time for a break, but please don't go away, as my next guest is a pioneer in the field of food addiction. We're about to learn the science behind the sugar addiction. Please stay with us.
What we're talking about is a substance, sugar, that can activate parts of our brain that are primal.
Welcome back. You are watching the Dr. Nandi Show, and today I'm discussing the mindset of healthy weight. because I want you to stop thinking that trendy diets are the only answer to losing weight and keeping it off. Now, the Western diet is full of refined and processed food, so it's important to understand how sugar can derail good intentions to make healthy eating a lifestyle. My next guest is a research neuroscientist and an expert in the field of nutrition, diet, and addiction. Please welcome Dr. Nicole Avena. Thank you, Dr. Avena.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks. It's really a privilege to have your expertise. So talk about the neuroscience of sugar addiction. What exactly does that mean?
Well, there's been a lot of research that's occurred over the past several years that's gone on to really understand what happens to our brains when we eat too much sugar. Americans are eating way too much sugar. We're eating almost 22 teaspoons of added sugar each day, and now the World Health Organization suggests we eat more like between 6 and 8 teaspoons a day.
So much less.
We really need to eat much less. And there's been lots of studies that have found that when we overconsume sugar, it affects our brains in ways that resembles an addiction. So it can cause changes in neurochemicals like dopamine and the opioids in areas of the brain that are associated with pleasure and reward, just like what we see with drug addicts.
Like cocaine, for example.
Exactly.
So, people who've never heard this, but sugar is often your first addiction and the first ways you get those pleasure centers. And you have a brain scan here to show us that, right?
Yeah, so if we take a look at an image, for instance, in this case, you can see when we compare normal brain versus a brain that's of a person who's been given cocaine, and we compare that to a person who is obese. Often the case, obesity is associated with a sugar addiction or consumption of too much sugar.
Sure.
You can see that the areas of the brain that are activated in the person who's obese and the person who's been exposed to cocaine are almost identical. And we're not seeing that activation in a person who hasn't been exposed to these things.
So the answer is that, and so one thing I want to clarify, people think all sugar is the same. The sugar from an apple or a pear or a vegetable, it's totally different. We're talking about the sugar in your cookies, Fred, that you were asking me before, or the sugar in refined foods, right? So tell us about that, and what can we do to get off this addiction? Because it seems everywhere we go, the stuff is, you can find this stuff. So how do you get away from this?
Well, it's true. You're right, Dr. Nandi, that there are a lot of differences in the types of sugars that we consume. And when I'm talking about the sugars that we need to get away from, I'm talking about the added sugars. And so these are sugars that are added to our food products by the food companies, or sugar that we add to our products ourselves if we're adding sugar in our cereal or coffee. So that's the sugar you want to avoid. The sugar in fruits and in some of our vegetables is actually healthy for us because it's in an appropriate dose, and it's also in balance with other nutrients and fibers that we need. And that will mitigate the effects that the sugar that's in that apple or in that piece of fruit can have on our brains. So I don't advise people avoid eating fruits and vegetables. We really need to stay away from a lot of the processed foods that contain all those added sugars.
All that amazing pasta and pizza, got to get away from it. So how do you know if you're a sugar addict? You showed that scan that was super scary. You got the cocaine person on cocaine and the person who's on sugar and obese. I mean, how do you then know if you're a sugar addict?
Great question. So one of the things that we study in my research laboratory is whether or not someone can be diagnosed or be found to have an actual addiction to food or addiction to sugar. And in many ways, it's just like we would ask questions about whether or not someone has an addiction to a drug of abuse.
Sure.
So there's several different scales that are available that you can take online that are questionnaires that will ask questions about your feelings and behaviors toward food. But I think the bottom line, what I tell people is that if you feel that it's disrupting your life or detrimental to your life in some way or making you unhappy, then it's time to start to talk to your doctor about it and see about getting some help with changing your eating behaviors.
And here's the thing, what the doctor is saying is that even if you know that it's bad for you and it's making you feel, you're bloated and you get these sugar crashes and you're still going back to it, that's a sign that there may be a problem. You got to go to your doctor, but you have to have a doctor with an open mind, right? People just think it's all like it's willpower and you're crazy and you'll just stop it. That's not the case, is it?
It's not the case, no. Just like with any addiction, it's really something that willpower has very little role in, because what we're talking about is a substance, sugar, that can activate parts of our brain that are primal, parts of the brain that are frontal cortex that normally puts the brakes on our bad behaviors when we know they're bad. the frontal cortex can't override it. And so we really do need assistance sometimes with getting through an addiction to food. And it's not something that you can simply just, wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to quit eating this today. Just like an alcoholic can't wake up always and say, hey, I'm going to stop drinking.
And here's the thing, that you get barraged, right? Everywhere you go, you see, commercials for, by the way, the other trick is that no fat and low fat. But you check the labels and it's full of this processed stuff, this processed sugar. So are we ruining our health with this sugar in our country?
I think we are. I think that we've seen this change over the past 20 years where we had, this sort of low-fat revolution where everybody was eating low-fat, and that is another way of saying we're eating high carb, high sugar.
Exactly right.
When you take the fat out of a food product, especially a processed food, in order to make it taste good and not taste like cardboard, you got to add some sugar to it.
That's exactly right.
And so what we found is that so many of us were overeating sugar, and we've developed these palates now where we actually sense sugar or want to taste the sugar. So a lot of times when I talk to people who decide to cut processed sugars out of their life and reduce their intake, they start to notice that over the course of a week or so, you really start to change the way that you eat and change the way that food tastes. Food that doesn't typically taste sweet, like berries, for instance, people will report, wow, suddenly
it's so sweet.
It's so sweet. It's too
It
sweet now.
changes your entire perception
It does.
of what sweet is. And by the way, just replacing with artificial sugar and getting a bunch of artificial sugar, or artificial sweeteners rather, is not the trick, because the same thing can happen. Thank you so much for your expertise.
Thank you.
I so appreciate it. A lot of people will be assisted by this. If you're addicted to sugar and would like to know more, Dr. Avena has a book called Why Diets Fail. She explains how to end cravings, lose weight, and get healthy. Now it's time for a break, and my next guest will share how the bacteria, that's right, the bacteria in your digestive tract, talks to your brain and regulates cravings. So please stay with us.
We have some great things here. So the biggest thing I say is we want to think about eating foods that Mother Nature grew, and their whole food form is the big idea.
Not in the factory, right?
Yes, not in the factory.
Welcome back. You are watching the Dr. Nandi Show, and today we're discussing the mindset of healthy weight. Pretty important topic. My next guest is a functional nutrition expert. She's the author of Buddies in My Belly, great title, by the way, and a book is geared towards children to explain how bacteria play such an important role in our health. Now we have about 100 trillion bacteria in our gut, and Sarah's going to share how healthy bacteria can lead to a healthy weight. Please welcome her. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So, what is bacteria? People are asking, what does my bacteria in my gut have to do with my weight? Or even having a healthy brain? Maybe you could explain that to us.
Yeah, great question. So first thing I like to say is 2 to 4 pounds of who we are when we step on the scale are the healthy bacteria that live in our digestive tract.
That by itself is such an amazing fact.
Yeah.
Remember when you first, it's unbelievable. And so how does that play a role in your weight?
Yes, weight. So when we talk about weight, one of the things that I like to say is the buddies are the secret weapon to weight loss.
Okay.
So this is 2 to 4 pounds of who you are that you don't want to lose, because the good bacteria, the healthy bacteria, actually help set our weight in our brain. So we can kind of vary our calories throughout the days and weeks, and our weight doesn't change that much if we have the good ones in our belly. Now,
If you have the bad ones.
if we have the bad germs, what happens is they upregulate inflammation, or what I like to say, little fireballs, all in our body. And that can lead to insulin resistance, basically where we don't use our food well as an energy source, and it gets stored as fat. And then we pack on the pounds, and we have a really hard time losing weight, which so many people, find themselves in that vicious cycle.
Huge problem. Huge problem. And so, we're talking about simple ways in which you can not just get on a diet. Like people always talk about, let's get on a diet, but rather how you can have a healthy way to approach weight. So if you have the good stuff, like foods that we can talk about, that we'll talk about, I'm sure there's a lot of food here, that can really change the whole paradigm in the sense that you get the good bacteria, that can actually lead to you, first of all, not eating as much. Number 2, feeling good about what you eat. Number 3, also resetting the entire the entire spectrum of having a healthy weight.
Yes.
So tell us about foods that will do that for us.
Yeah,
so we
absolutely.
got some amazing stuff we see in our
Yeah, we have
home.
some great things here. So the biggest thing I say is we want to think about eating foods that Mother Nature grew, and their whole food form is the big idea.
Not in the factory, right?
Yes, not in the factory. So we want foods that have a lot of fiber. Fiber is food for the buddies. So we think about vegetables, fruits, whole grains, nuts and seeds, which we have a variety of these here. And then we have probiotic rich foods like the sauerkraut and even yogurt. Pickled veggies are great sources where they actually contain the bacteria that we culture, and then we get a great
You're
dose.
good buddies, right?
Yeah, we get a good dose of buddies by the foods we eat. So what I like to say is half your plate vegetables with some fruits, a fourth of your plate protein, and then another fourth of your plate, we want whole grains or beans. I'm a big fan
That's
of
awesome.
beans.
Yeah, beans don't get much love in this country.
They don't.
You know, I love beans. I mean, we eat beans every day in my house. My son, I don't know if you know what dal is. They're legumes
Yes,
too, you know, and we have that every day. And this is his favorite, which is broccoli.
Yes.
And those pigmented fruits are awesome.
Amazing. And beets too. We don't eat a lot of beets in our country.
And the
they're
good
really
fats
good.
too, right? The
Yes,
good fats. Tell us about the
absolutely.
good fats, because people think that all fat is bad. So maybe you can talk about this.
Yeah, so when we think about salmon, you know, the big thing that we're looking at is those omega-3s, those long chain fatty acids, which are awesome for the brain. They're going to help reduce cravings, you know, for sugar. And the buddies really like those good fats. So the problem with fat is when it's processed, it's fried, and it kind of becomes toxic, then it's not good for us.
Exactly, like mostly it's animal fat. You know, we talk about animal fat. People think that, first of all, she said, you know, we should have some protein. Everybody thinks that it always has to be animal source. Because they say, Doc, I can't eat those veggies because, you know, I need my protein.
Yes.
And Fred said that sometimes to me. Fred's our assistant director, by the way, which I pick on sometimes. And he doesn't know that broccoli actually has some protein.
It does,
And so there's
calcium.
Exactly, and this has some protein too. So it doesn't mean that it always has to be animal source. And so tell me, how long, if we start today,
Yes.
you know, and eat all this amazing stuff you have here, which is delicious, by the way, and you can get it at any grocery store.
Yes.
We, you know, on the Nandi nutrition plan, we say 80-20 rule. Even if 80% of the time you can do this, and 20% of the time you can have a little bit of fun because your kids may have a birthday party, it's still awesome.
Heck yeah.
It is-
I like chocolate. So,
it is
you know, we gotta have a balance.
awesome. We'll get along.
Yes.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you
here
so much for
and
having
adding so much information for us.
Yes.
Amazing. So it's time to take a break. When we come back, we're going to discuss the right mindset you should have when it comes to healthy weight. Please stay with us.
You know, diet always has an end. So dieting or any diet always has an end. So
Right.
it will always end at some point. And then what happens after that?
Back and watching the Dr. Nandi Show. We're having a lot of fun talking about the mindset of healthy weight. Now, we've discussed how some people's brain are really more susceptible to sugar and they need to avoid it so not to trigger an addictive mindset that can lead to overeating. And for many of us, however, we can eat foods in moderation. And I feel so passionate about this that I wrote a whole chapter on it in my book called Ask Dr. 95 Steps to Becoming Your Own Health Hero for Longevity, Wellness, and a Joyful Life. And I know many of you view dieting as a way to cut back on calories so you can quickly drop pounds, right? But what you don't realize is these restrictive diets can lead to nutritional deficiencies and yo-yo dieting. They can also wreak havoc on your metabolism and immune system. So what is the right mindset to have? Joining me now to answer that question is functional medicine practitioner and registered dietitian, nutritionist, and my friend, Mitali Kapila. Mitali, thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you so much for
Always
having
a
me.
pleasure to have you and giving us all of your wisdom. So what is a healthy mindset? Because you know you talk to your patients a lot about this. What does that mean?
So healthy mindset for weight loss is not just temporary weight loss, but looking at a healthy person as a whole. Okay, so looking at the root cause of what the problem is and getting deep into the root cause of what the issue really is, so that it gives you a long-term weight loss or weight management versus just a short-term goal.
And what do you tell your patients when they come in? What kinds of information do you get and what kind of advice do you give them?
So we do a thorough assessment to find out what that root cause is. So is it physical, is it emotional, or is something going on inside their body? So for example, emotional, if their emotional needs are not being met, they are too stressed out, or they are having relationship issues, that's causing them to eat in excess certain foods to make them feel better. So that's a whole another area. And if they're having actual issues, so physiological issues like hormonal imbalance, their endocrine hormones are off, or their thyroid hormone is off, or they're having poor gut bacteria. So what is exactly going on? Or their insulin blood sugar is off. What is causing them to eat what they're eating? So paying attention to that and figuring out what the real root cause is, and then creating a comprehensive treatment plan or eating plan based on that and that lifestyle.
And I feel so passionate about what you said. You know, in my book, I talk about the fact that the two things. Number one is that you have to have a purpose. And I think you alluded to that. You have to have a purpose in why you want to achieve this weight, right? Is it because you want to fit in that amazing bikini or show off your abs or whatever it is? Those temporary goals really fail. To me, it's about the purpose and finding out why. And then secondly, you have to find out, okay, how can I incorporate it into my life? Whether you're in South America or you're in Detroit or wherever it is, can you then eat the foods that you like in a way that it can still be incorporated? You have to be realistic, because so many times you get these restrictive diets that say, well, you know what? You have to do this, this, and this, drink water only for this many hours, or eat beans, or watch the sunlight, and all this crap. And so that doesn't work. So, what we have to do is get people on a realistic track. Talk about that versus, to me, it's a bad word called diet. Diet versus really making it realistic for them to achieve their goals.
So diet can really lead to, diet always has an end. So dieting or any diet always has an end.
Right.
So it will always end at some point. And then what happens after that? So that's why I think that word diet should not even exist.
And it's of deprivation. To me, when you have deprivation and people are constantly stressed, when you feel like you shouldn't exercise, then what happens, right? You get stressed, your cortisol goes up, inflammation goes up, and your bacteria are not healthy. You are actually adding on more weight. So people are watching. What some simple tips that they can incorporate in their lives to have a healthy mindset? You treated so many patients successfully. What can you give? Maybe a couple of tips for patients and people who are watching that they can incorporate in their lives.
So really focusing on healthy whole foods.
Yes.
Okay, and definitely the mantra is focus on healthy whole foods and stay away from processed food as much as possible. Drink water, get adequate rest, manage and cope with stress. So those are like more lifelong healthy behavior changes versus short-term diet only. Because with diet, I found that it always has to do with that it's short-term and it ends at some point.
Exactly.
And also, there's a lot of emotional energy related with the diet. If you're breaking your diet or not able to stick to your diet properly, that can lead to poor self-esteem or guilt. And it becomes a very negative, vicious cycle.
Absolutely.
So create mindfulness, create self-awareness. And what I really focus on is positive relationship with food and movement. So you mentioned movement or physical activity. It's not always about going to the gym and working out for 2 hours. So if you can do that, that's great. But if not, really creating a peaceful, positive environment and your relationship with food and meaningful movement.
Awesome stuff. So if I heard it correctly, guess what? Find a new room in your house called the kitchen and start cooking whole food. That means you, Fred. Number 2, have a good relationship with food and the people around you. Toxic relationships will do what? Make you fat. So don't do it. And the third thing is do this amazing new technique of weight loss. It's called sleep. So if you get enough sleep, have amazing relationships, cook your own food, which is whole food, and also move a little bit, get off the couch. The only time you should be on the couch is to watch the Dr. Nandi Show, and then you stop. So now it's time for a break, but don't go away, because up next we're gonna learn how stuck emotions can lead to overeating and how yoga can help. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
It was great.
The monkey mind, our left brain that never stops talking, begins to stop talking, and the you that listens to you begins to practice yoga. And that changes everything.
Welcome back. We are on the Dr. Nandi Show, and we're talking about the mindset of healthy weight. Now, yoga has become increasingly popular, and you likely know many of the numerous mental and physical benefits, but you may not have heard how this ancient practice helps with stuck emotions that can lead to overeating. Here to explain this is Bethany Perry. She's a yoga instructor and an intuitive weight loss coach. Please welcome Bethany. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. So tell me about how yoga helps with one's mindset, especially with relation to weight loss.
Well, initially yoga was created to help men stay in meditation longer. So yoga is truly all about connecting with the breath. It's a lot more than the asana or the pose. When we
Which is what people are just, just infatuated with, right?
Yeah.
They forget
Well,
about
and
the
it's
real
okay because we're North Americans and we like to be active, and
That's right.
being active is a good thing. However, when we forget to connect with the breath, when we start to do that, then there becomes this spiritual aspect that comes into play. We connect with who we are because the monkey mind, our left brain that never stops talking, begins to stop talking, and the you that listens to you begins to practice yoga, and that changes everything.
And how does that help you to maintain that mindset for a healthy weight?
So what I like to say is we practice off the mat what we practice on the mat. And when we really bring ourself to ourself and we start to appreciate who we are. Most Americans speak to themselves the way they wouldn't let anybody else speak to themselves. And when we start listening to that and we use what I call vitamin A awareness and have awareness of what we're saying, and we stop saying those things, we start caring enough about ourselves to start caring about our choices.
I think the message is that we're so mean to ourselves.
Yes.
And we're so hard on ourselves often that we'd never do that to anybody else because we'd be embarrassed. But yet we punish ourselves with the stuff that we say to ourselves. And why do we do that, do you think?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons that we do that, and some of them can be very personal. But one of the reasons that we do that is because it keeps us in a place from we don't have to be inconvenienced.
Tell us how yoga can really go into the place of stuck emotions and help you in the long run.
Things happen to us. We
Of
have
course.
big T, little t traumas our whole life, and they get stuck in our body. All feelings are in our body, and when we have negative feelings or emotions, most of us don't want to feel them. And what are we taught? Don't cry, stop.
Exactly.
Those are the things
Suck
that.
it up.
Yep, suck it up, buttercup.
That's right.
And so
Suck it up, buttercup.
So what do? They get stuck, so we end up eating them, and we shove them down, and then it affects our intestines. It affects our brain. It affects everything. When we practice yoga, even if we're not aware what we're working out, we're creating this beautiful connection, and the body begins to release old things. I've had students, and myself included, where they'll cry, they'll laugh, they feel like, why am I doing this? And it's like, well, it was in your body. When maybe you were in church and you couldn't laugh out loud. I don't know.
Exactly.
But the truth is as we release all of those emotions, we're freer, and the more free we are as a person just to be who we are, we don't need to choose foods that don't serve us.
Exactly, and it's really beautiful, and the physiology goes back to when you have these stuck emotions and you have that stress. It's a little bit of that fight or flight response that we go back. Human beings are very primitive. Our bodies are very primitive, even though our minds don't think they are. And then what happens is, what she's describing is the cortisol goes up, all the hormones go up that you don't want. Then the mind, which is being bombarded with this, and communicates with your gut, and then it gives you bad signals, and then the bacteria that are supposed to be good are now turned into bad. I mean, the whole cascade starts. And then guess what? Obesity can result based on your behavior, the resetting of your appetite centers. It goes the entire way. And how can yoga actually help you to release it? Because you see it all the time. Help you release these stuck emotions. I mean, does it just happen overnight? Is it a practice? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I don't think anything with weight loss, if it's overnight, it's probably not real. So it's a practice. And the thing I love about yoga is it's considered a practice.
Yes.
If you're in a sport, you're competing. And yoga is not about competing. it's about practicing. One day you might do a pose beautifully, and the next day,
May not.
so much. But what matters is the gift that you're giving your body and connecting to this you, and not listening to, you know, the left brain lies to itself all the time. And Eastern tradition, I study, you know, in India, and they, you know, they'll talk about it's the monkey mind or the ego. And they'll say that the left brain that never stops talking is the ego that's telling you all these things. And when you connect to who you really are, who you're really meant to be, then you can release all that stuff. And yoga is a beautiful gift to be able to bring that into your life.
And we always say, you know, on the show, the biggest relationship and the most important one is the one you have with yourself.
Absolutely.
And yoga is just an amazing tool to allow you to do that. And a lot of people are leery about it. I would not. I mean, this amazing woman will, you know, has shown exactly how you can do it. Thank you for bringing this information to us so many people can benefit. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
It's time to take a break again. When we come back, we will share some important information about mindfulness and tips about how you can be mindful, so please don't go away.
You take 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and you sit there and say to yourself, what is it that I really, really want? What do I really want? And you'll get an answer if you wait.
Welcome back. You are watching the Dr. Nandi Show, and today we've been talking about the mindset of healthy weight. And our conversation wouldn't be complete without discussing mindful eating, my favorite. Why? Because too often we're distracted with our busy lifestyles and completely unaware of how much food we're mindlessly eating. So here to share some mindful eating tips with us is Miss Marywell Bray. She holds a master's degree in psychology, specializing in behavioral science. She's also the author of 6 books, including the best-selling book, The Swiss Chocolate Diet. Please welcome Marywell. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank
So
you.
what tips can you give our audience that's watching?
So, I really feel that mindfulness has to be the #1 issue before we even begin to start to lose weight.
I agree with you.
We've tried no carbs, we've tried no fat, we've tried counting calories, we've tried eating next to nothing, skipping breakfast, skipping lunch, and then we would do that from Monday till Friday, and then the weekend comes. And so we may have lost some weight during the week, and all of a sudden on Saturday and Sunday, we have more weight back than we thought we could ever lose. We have given up on ourselves and our own capability to get the body of our dreams. We stop short of even thinking about doing something because we have memories that we haven't done it before. How can we do it now?
We're convinced we're going to fail. And so mindful
Right.
eating to me is, I start with saying that, you know, you have to have a goal of some kind, that you have to have purpose in what you're doing. If it's simply just because society deems it to be possible, that's one thing, but it's not sustainable. Every time you sit down with your meal, and this is a practice, this will not happen overnight. You know, I talk about eating until you're 2/3 full. That won't happen overnight.
No.
It's going to take practice, and you said it really well. Make a goal. Find your North Star.
That's
and
right.
once you find your North Star, you say, how do I want to feel? And then when you say how you want to feel, then you do everything in your life to replicate that. That means not just what you eat, but how you move, the relationships that you have with your people. Because you have toxic relationships and no support, you can't do it.
Right.
You know, you can't do it. And now people are watching. If you had to give them one tip about what they can do today,
Right.
what would you tell them?
Oh, I would tell them, sit down all alone, somewhere quiet. That's not easy to do these
No,
days.
not at all.
And you take 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and you sit there and say to yourself, what is it that I really, really want? What do I really want? And you'll get an answer if you wait.
But you have to wait and you have to stay still. You know, this is amazing information. And her book is called The Swiss Chocolate Diet. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, you can help a lot of people with this information. Please stay with us. When we come back, Partha's prescriptions. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching the Dr. Nandi Show. And today I discuss the mindset of healthy weight because I want you to stop dieting and instead think of how you can make healthy eating a permanent lifestyle. What can we take away from today's Partha's prescriptions? Please drop the ever-changing ideal of the perfect body shape. Instead, eat to maintain a healthy weight and size. Please choose the right foods using my 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, eat highly nutritious foods, leaving 20% for that occasional treat. Now, sugar addiction can sabotage well-intentioned efforts to eat right, but for some people, abstinence may be the only approach that works. Make sure to include high-fiber diets and a range of colorful fruits and vegetables. They feed the friendly bacteria that help regulate our mindset and cravings. To stay informed about today's topic, learn about healthy living and how to become your own health hero, visit me at AskDrNandi.com. Also, I would love to hear from you. Be sure to follow me, Partha Nandi, on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest, and join our discussion. And lastly, there's a beautiful word in the Hindi language that literally means the light in me honors the light in you, and that word is namaste. So namaste to each and every one of you. I thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Thank you.